Hello, 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 hello. Wherever you are on this faithful planet called Earth, I hope you are having a thought provoking day, evening, or night, wherever you are located. Here in the state of Maryland, the city of Baltimore, I'm ready to read a nice, wholesome article. It's called After Settling in to Baltimore, award-winning author Toni Tipton-Martin is plotting her next cooking move. So we're going to talk about something wonderful and positive. A cooking author. This article is written by John Williams IV. It might sound strange to hear that Toni Tipton-Martin is finding her voice. The food editor, author, and 2 times Beard Award winner is one of the leading authorities in the history of black food. Okay, so that's our specialty, black food. But a move to Baltimore, mixed with the country's recent focus on social justice, has given the 40-year food industry veteran a newfound sense of strength. Quote, I think that the civil unrest have shown us that African American experience with microaggressions on a minute-by-minute basis. It does nothing by not telling us these experiences, unquote, she said from Baltimore, her home for the past 2 years. Okay, so that's nice. Up until recently, Tipton-Martin said she has been, quote, very respectful and quiet about, unquote, her struggles. So even though she's an award-winning author, a renowned individual in the food industry, she is still having her racial struggles. She was far less likely to share just how difficult it was to achieve her literary success. And she was even more guarded about sharing details from her personal life. Okay. But recent racial strife means Tipton-Martin is more willing to talk about her often painstaking experience getting to award-winning books, Jubilee, Recipes from 2 Centuries of African American Cookbooks, and the Jemima Code, 2 Centuries of African American Cookbooks, published. Initially, Tipton-Martin presented Jemima Code to a New York agent in 2010 as a book of essays with citations and recipe book. That agent disappeared with her proposal. That resulted in her self-publishing the books as a blog. Okay, so she went, that's the benefit of the internet. If somebody won't publish it for you, publish it yourself. Quote, like my ancestors, when I experienced obstacles, social media provided me a window in, unquote, she said in reference to the historical obstacles that black people have faced at every level of society. Every level. Whether you are poor, middle class, well off, or rich, all of them face struggles. Tipton-Martin said that her books have smashed the beliefs in the publishing industry that black people don't buy books in the historical food genre. Quote, this is a book that has mass appeal. Our story has not been told before, unquote, she said of Jubilee. Quote, the reason that I took Jemima Code to the internet in the first place is because I was told that there wasn't a market for a book like that. So who was her publisher? You got the idea who her publisher probably be. Jubilee, which was published in 2019, focuses on black food history in America, including Maryland, the state where she currently resides. Among the highlights, Maryland's stuffed ham, which was cooked in St. Mary's County, and deviled crab, and the black woman who sold it. Tipton-Martin said the initial response by journalists to Jubilee, a serious book that addresses the struggles that black people have endured in this country, was superficial, so they just tossed it aside. Quote, they would say, how excited and how delicious everything sounded, she recalled, adding that she once had a recipe described as, quote, perky. Tipton-Martin said that because historic African American cooking had not appeared in the mainstream, she had to go above and beyond during the research process. For example, Tipton-Martin acquired more than 400 rare books by black authors through the course of her research, a tiring but necessary experience. She also moved twice while writing her books. Wow, so she moved. So I hope she's here to stay and not here just doing research in Baltimore. Even identifying a black food photographer who was versed in shooting food in a studio for a cookbook format was difficult. Wow. She eventually found Dallas-based photographer Jarrell Guy. The struggle has been worth the recognition. Tipton-Martin can vividly remember her first James Beard Award in 2016. So that was recently, 4 years ago. Quote, "For me, especially after so many years trying to be taken seriously for a message that did not conform to the soul food only story, it was exhilarating," unquote, she said. Quote, "No one wanted to publish this book. It was a thank you for at least recognizing that and rectifying that error," unquote. This year's victory was bittersweet due to COVID-19. The annual awards in New York City were canceled. Instead, winners were announced online. Quote, "You want to be in the presence of those you love," unquote, she said. Quote, "Nothing can replace being recognized by peers," unquote. That's true. Jamila Robinson, James Beard committee member and food editor at the Philadelphia Inquirer, described Tipton-Martin as a superstar in the food writing industry. So that's all foods. She's a superstar. Quote, "I think that Jubilee is the most important cookbook we saw this year. There is a reason it won the James Beard Award. It is such an important sweep of American cooking," unquote, said Robinson, who has given away the book as gifts throughout the year. Quote, "Everyone who is American should have this book. It is your history too." Yes, that's true. It's all American history for everyone in America, not just for a select group. Robinson added, quote, "She should be in the Hall of Fame. I hope food media starts to more broadly recognize more people like her, and not just in a moment." Okay, I know what that means. Not just now. Not just for 3 years and 5 years, then tossed aside and forgotten forever. Baltimore-based chef David Thomas and his wife Tanya kicked off Tipton-Martin's book tour during a dinner at the restaurant, which they left to pursue other ventures in March. Quote, "I hope people understand the value of having a black woman capturing this information and releasing this to the public," unquote, Tanya said. Quote, "I look at her like she is an elder because she has done this kind of work." Well, she's 61 years old, I believe, so she is an elder. He added, quote, "It's a huge deal for Baltimore to have a black author writing about black food and black food ways. It's beyond impressive," unquote. Recently, Tipton-Martin's name has been floated for the vacant editor position at Bon Appetit by prominent food forces like Ruth Richel, the former editor-in-chief of Gourmet magazine, and Padma Lakshmi, host of Top Chef. The position became available in early June when Adam Rappaport, the editor-in-chief, resigned after a 2004 photo surfaced of him and his wife dressed in stereotypical costumes meant to portray Puerto Ricans. Okay, so they dressed in a racist fashion to insult the Puerto Rican people. So all people get teased. All, not just a select group. Everyone get mocked and teased. Alright, quote, "It spoke volumes about the hope we all have for a new day in food journalism," unquote, she said. Quote, "If I were going to lead Bon Appetit, it would carry the same work ethic that has defined my entire career," unquote. A representative for Bon Appetit declined comment. Quote, "While we cannot comment on any potential candidate specifically, the process is underway and we look forward to having the role filled soon," unquote, Molly Pacala, editor, director, and head of communications lifestyle division for Condé Nast. Tipton-Martin has a complicated relationship with Baltimore. Oh, she does? So let's see what it says. She describes, quote, hurt feelings with her initial experience to Charm City. Okay, I'm sorry to hear about that. Quote, it's the disregard for humanity, the pockets of vacancies, and an unemployment that reflect generations of neglect. She begins, quote, I'm not unfamiliar with urban poverty. Part of what excited me about coming to Baltimore was the opportunity to reclaim this historic architecture and to explore its full history and to share its message of hope with the generations that could benefit from the role models in the food world, unquote. Tipton-Martin said that the region has, quote, success stories associated with black bartending and catering throughout that, quote, could give our young people inspiration for creating small businesses of their own. So good. So she has the mindset of being a creator and an innovator, not just working for someone. She's saying make your own business. Her home has been a blessing and a source of frustration. Tipton-Martin and her husband, Bruce, a U.S. Naval Academy graduate, relocated to Baltimore when he got a new job in sales and marketing in 2018. It was during that time that a friend told the couple about an abandoned row house in Charles Village that was going to auction. The home, which she calls, quote, a dream come true, unquote, is everything that they wanted. A parlor where the author put her library, original wood window shutters, an ornate fireplace, and working servant bells. Okay. But the home came with its own set of issues. A roof leak destroyed the kitchen and a second floor bedroom. Okay, so when he got it, it was beset with errors. Didn't he have someone to check the house over thoroughly, especially since it was an aged house? The couple also became embroiled in a legal battle with their contractor that is still being played out in court. But Tipton-Martin remains optimistic that Baltimore is the right place for her. She and her husband enjoy walking the inner harbor extending into Fells Point, which intrigues them because of its connection to Frederick Douglass. Wow. The city's historic architecture, particularly in Gulfport and Roland Park, reminds them of the Shaker Heights home they lived in when they were first married, while she worked as the food editor at the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Before that, she was staff writer at the LA Times for 8 years. Quote, what I love about Charles Village, besides the house stock, is the mix of people associated with university living. She said, quote, they are artists, they are engaged, they are tolerant, they are thinkers. That makes up for the parts that I don't like so much, unquote. She said, quote, I'm determined to find a way to bring the optimism from the new life that comes from an education of young people, unquote. Tipton-Martin plans to do just that when she originally opens a cooking school or streaming cooking show from a studio kitchen in her beloved home's basement, which has its own entrance. Quote, our intention was to make it our home and make it a place that gives back to the community, unquote. She said, quote, whether we do cooking classes or videos from there depends on COVID-19. So that's it, my good friends. If you enjoyed the article, something positive, something uplifting, please give me a thumbs up. If you know Miss Tipton-Martin or have any comments about Miss Tipton-Martin or even use some of her recipes, please leave a comment. If you would like to subscribe to hear future content, please subscribe. Until the next time, peace.